What if the way you react in moments of stress, conflict, or overwhelm isn't a personal failure, but an invitation to lead yourself differently? Today's episode is about becoming the CEO of me, learning how to pause, reframe, and take ownership of your thoughts, emotions, and responses so you can show up more grounded in your relationships, parenting, and daily life. So come join us. Women's Wellness Authority is a podcast for women who want to come home to themselves, physically, emotionally, and energetically, while exploring grounded, root-level approaches to healing. In each episode, we explore the many layers of wellness through thoughtful conversations with experts, healers, and practitioners, helping you better understand what your body is communicating. This podcast is about empowerment, offering practical tools and wisdom to help you thrive in all areas of your life. Let's rewrite the rules of wellness together, step into your power, reclaim your health, and discover what it means to truly thrive from the inside out. Welcome back to Women's Wellness Authority. I'm your host, Diana Ruskowski, and today we're having a conversation every parent, and really honestly, every human, deserves to explore. We're talking about what it really means to become the CEO of me. Not in a hustle, productivity sense, but in a deeply human, compassionate way. Learning how to lead ourselves forward in awareness by being centered, empowered, and optimized version of ourselves. My guest today, Heathir McElroy, a parent and child relationship connector, mentor, and guide, and the creator of CEO of Me, the core platform of her Mom Mentor Parent University. Heathir helps parents and families navigate these big emotions, challenging moments, and everyday interactions with more clarity, kindness, and connection. In this episode, we'll explore how our lived experiences shape how we show up, what might be clouding our window, we'll explain that, and how to turn pivotal life moments into teachable ones, and how simple shifts in awareness can completely transform our relationships. But we start with ourselves. So let's dive in. Welcome, Heathir.
Thank you, Diana. Great to see you.
So I always like to ask my guests, before we kind of also get into the core of your Mom Mentor, am I pronouncing that correctly?
I just say it Momentor,
Oh, okay.
and it is built around mom and men and
Okay.
a mentor and the moments. So
I love that. So
all of them.
Mom Mentor Parent University. Can you share how you sort of got into that position and building all that content and to help other
Absolutely.
parents?
I'd love to. So it's kind of funny. I started doing my own work on my parenting back when my child was about 6. He's now 17 and a half. He would want me to note. And I wonder when the half ends, like maybe it's once we get to be adults, right? So I was doing this work, learning a lot, really implementing things in my parenting. And I went into my first parenting class thinking I was going to figure out how to fix my kid and align him with like my ideals and the way that I grew up and what I expected of him. And I was 10 minutes into my first class and I went, oh, wait. This is about me. This isn't about my kid at all.
Yeah.
This is about me. And I talked to my friends and my colleagues and my clients. I owned a marketing firm and I was in working with clients all the time and sharing with them like what I was learning, what I was adopting into my parenting from the classes I was taking and the books I was reading. And fast forward, the pandemic begins and I really just was in a state of burnout and just had a lot of like really busy years. And I was doing this work coaching and helping with marketing and mission, vision, values and planning for businesses with their leaders and their creative teams and their marketing teams. And I kept seeing curiosity in my clients about what I was doing with my parenting. And I thought, there's something going on here. All of these parents who I'm talking to in the workplace are stressed out, are thinking, I don't know if I want to come back after I have this baby. I feel like there are things happening in this workplace that don't align with my values anymore. Maybe I'm going to look for a different type of job so that I have more flexibility. So it was really interesting to me to see how many people were really struggling with that. We call it balance, right? And I don't think there is such a thing as balance. I think harmony is what we want to achieve.
I love that. Yeah.
So that's where I went. And during the pandemic, I wrote my own curriculum to start groups of parents and talk about these things and work on like what things we're carrying along with us on our window, which again, we'll explain in a little bit, like how we were seeing our children, how we were seeing ourselves in our different roles that we play in the world. And it all came together. I went back for education because I knew there was a lot of things that I didn't know a lot about, like brain science and attachment styles, and really understanding like more about how the historical, the epigenetic things that come into our life, things that we carry from the stories of our ancestors and the experiences of those around us. So
how that affects how we parent today is what you're saying.
Yes, it certainly does.
Yeah. So much of what you just said resonates. All the thoughts, about, am I doing this right? Or maybe I want a change, or does this place still align with my values and how I want to parent? I feel like any one of those comments that you just made can resonate with the listeners, because I think all of us, if we are not there now, we have been or we will be, right?
And it doesn't even mean we have to have children of our own. I mean, we can be
Aunts,
bonus parenting
uncles,
children, aunts, uncles. We could be caring for our own parents. And in that parent-child relationship as the child, we can be caring for a sibling who maybe has a disability that our aging parents are still caring for and also needing care themselves. So
yeah, you're right. This all sort of come together, and so that makes a lot of sense. So can you explain what CEO of me actually means?
absolutely. So I wrote this talk when I was just finishing up Jai Institute for Parenting, is where I became a credentialed or certified parent coach. And this epiphany came to me, accumulation of like all of the learning and books and things that I had done, and then my training. And I thought, we are each the CEO of ourselves. And that, kind of brings a picture to mind, I think, for most people when I do this talk out in the world. And I know you've seen it. I ask, like, picture in your mind. Your first invitation is picture in your mind what a CEO is. Like, what is a CEO to you? And my definition of a CEO is centered, empowered, and optimized version of me. And everyone has the opportunity to be the CEO of themselves.
Do you often think when you ask that question, people think of other people? Like the CEO is, they're thinking of characteristics of someone else outside of themselves?
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yep. And I get a lot of, okay, what I imagine is someone who's really stressed out, who works all the time, who isn't able to spend a lot of time with their family. So it's quite the opposite when I get down to, okay, well, here's how I would like to reframe CEO today in this talk. Doesn't mean you have to accept it. And just for today, think of CEO as yourself. You are your CEO of your life, and you are that centered, empowered, and optimized version of self. And then we get into it, and it's really amazing to see when someone does realize that they can be that centered, empowered, and optimized version of themselves, how things look a little different for them.
I mean, how empowering is that too? And if you think about whatever role you're in, you're running like a business. It's your life, right? So why not take control of that? I love that thought.
And I talk about that, doing that for our children. So there are 3 power styles in parenting in everyday life. And the power with is the ideal way to parent. And I may be getting ahead of us here, but that is also empowering our children to be the centered, empowered, and optimized version of themselves, and helping them have values that they understand are their own, helping them have thoughts, and helping them just know themselves better and modeling that.
Yeah, I can't remember if it was you that I'm sure you touched upon this, but then I've also seen like memes and stuff on social media. But I've also heard some people say, my job is to raise my kids to leave and be their own person, right? And so I think this is totally in line with that. So you said it's to parent with, or
the power styles are power over, which is kind of authoritarian, power under, which is more, it can be like a negligent parent, or it could just be those of us who grew up in the 70s and 80s whose parents, we were latchkey kids. Our parents both worked. It was, more of a kind of hands-off parenting, or wild parenting, I sometimes call it. And then the power with is where we are connected with our kiddos.
And then
for our parents.
empowering them to be their own CEO.
Yes.
And being able to make their own decisions, right? So that when it comes time for them to be an adult, they have the tools that they need, which is so different than I think a lot of us walking into the real world. It's a harsh reality in some of the things that you need to learn, and you can function perfectly fine. But imagine coming into all of that with tools and sort of envisioning already that you're the CEO and have control over how you react to things. So,
And I'm there. My kiddo's like out the door in next August. So,
yeah.
Although I love that I think he's ready to go into the world. Our brain development, our prefrontal cortex, our executive functioning doesn't fully develop until we're in our late 20s, right?
And is it different between men and women?
I was just going to touch on that. I was having a conversation this weekend, I think, and I've even talked to men who think, well, I don't think mine was even ready until I was in my mid-30s. And I'm like, well, that's great that you recognize that. And it's like puberty. Girls get their prefrontal cortex a little more developed first. But no, I don't know that there's any science. I don't know that there's science behind that, but it's just kind of like, I don't know. It just sort of seems like that in the world. I don't know if any studies have actually been done about how the prefrontal cortex develops differently in men and women. But.
Can you just explain what's the prefrontal cortex? What's the main responsibility?
Prefrontal cortex in your brain is your executive functioning.
Okay.
In a nutshell.
Okay. And then executive functioning, meaning?
Making good decisions, analyzing things, being able to decipher right from wrong. Those are executive functioning skills.
So we talked about and mentioned earlier this concept of a window, and I know that that's one of your core visuals. Can you explain this metaphor and how it applies in everyday life and how it applies in this program that you have?
Absolutely. I came to the idea that we all have a window, and I've heard so many different ways of describing things that we carry around with us. One of my mentors used the backpack analogy, we're carrying stuff in our backpack with us, like all our life experiences. And for me, the window is the visual that I think of when I am looking at a situation, or I'm out in the world, or I see someone struggling with something, or I see a neighbor do something that I'm like, I don't get them. I don't get that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So my analogy is that we each have our own window, and we each see the world through that window. And that window can be clouded with our life experiences, with any struggles that we've been through, our upbringing, our work life, all of the things, our parenting, anything that we have experienced, it clouds or leaves something on our window that we see the world through.
So we went through an exercise, right, when you did this session where you showed a bunch of pictures. And because of our different experiences, I gravitated towards one, you might gravitate towards another. Or if we're looking at the same image, we might have totally different perceptions of that image, right? And that's where you're saying is the perception through my window and through yours, given what's happened. Just like tying it back to what you said earlier, it's not even what's happened in my lifetime, right? You're saying it also generationally things can come up. Can you explain that a little bit too?
I don't know if we want to go too far into epigenetics, and some people don't believe in it. I feel very confident that it has an impact on us as humans. Epigenetics are experiences that are carried down in our bodies from our ancestors before us. I can give an example. So my dad is a Vietnam veteran, and there are things that I feel and experience when I hear about someone who is a Vietnam veteran, just because of my own experiences having a dad who has those experiences. And there are stories that he has shared through his life, very few, and occasionally things will come up. Or there are things that I just read a book called The Women about nurses in Vietnam. And I was like, this broke open a whole new, and books can do that for us. Books are amazing. And movies can also do that for us too.
That book is yeah, it's so well written. Yeah.
All of these things create, even reading a book creates more on our window that we're seeing the world through. It's not like the window is cloudy and we aren't able to see through it. It's that the window has things on it that create the view that we see. So just like the pictures that I put up on the screen, and it's the neat part of when I do the CEO of Me talk, I've had kiddos as young as 5 for that presentation, groups of teenagers, adults as old as 80 even. Mostly it's parents in the 30s and 40s. And it's so neat to hear what each person sees in a picture. It's about our biases, like our personal biases. And that's just another example of what's on our window, right?
So is the exercise to have a better understanding of how we look through our window? And then are you identifying those things and then determining like what tools you might have to navigate them better? Is the exercise just to create that awareness
It's
and
just to create
understand?
awareness.
Okay.
It really is. It's to be aware my window is different from your window, Diana. My window is different from my child's window. My window is definitely different than a 5-year-old, definitely different than an 80-year-old.
Definitely different than your partner, which is maybe
Yes.
why you have different perceptions on how to handle certain situations.
Yes. I never imply someone's broken or needs to clean their window. It's just being aware that what is on our window and how we're seeing the world through that window.
Yeah, I think the biggest takeaway for me in all of that is just the awareness. I think that's the biggest step in a lot of things, like acknowledging how you're feeling about something before if you want to do anything about it. It's just the general awareness that you feel that way or you react a certain way in a certain situation. You talk about pivotal life moments too, right? So you gave that great example, but joy, pain, loss, stress, and how they shape us and shape our view. So why are these moments so important?
So the way that I share that piece of my presentation is just really understanding how we can grow through things that happen for us. And I like to use the word for, just like I like to use different words. And we'll talk about that in a little bit too. I think words can really make a big difference. So if you look at an experience, even if it's a really hard experience, as something that is for us to learn, for us to grow from, it's a really big difference in feeling you're a victim or feeling empowered, like you're the centered, empowered, and optimized version of yourself, learning and growing from an experience.
I can share actually a personal story where this resonates really, really well. So I got laid off last year in February, and I immediately called the coach, my life coach that I've been working with off and on for the last couple of years prior to that. And she said those exact words that you just said, which is why I was like beaming. And she said, this isn't happening to you. This is happening for you.
Love it.
And what a change in perception. And then when I reached out to some of my team members who were also in the same position I was, because there was a massive layoff, I just felt so empowered by that. Instead of feeling like a victim, I was like, this is happening for me. So what am I going to do about it? Versus just sitting there and feeling sorry for myself. And she was like, celebrate it. This is happening for you. So what are you going to do? It just really changed. Yeah, I mean, I think about it now and I smile for many reasons, but you're right. That difference in the word really changed how I carried the situation, how I was looking at it going forward, and was looking at it in that present day.
What an amazing example, like to break through the feeling that one might have when you are laid off or lose your job and go, wow, like something's next for me.
Yeah.
Oh, and look at you now.
I know, exactly, right? But how do you take these realizations, right, and turn them into a meaningful change, especially in parenting? Because parenting is, I feel like all of the emotions, right? It's so rewarding, yet so challenging, can be so frustrating and so joyful. So how can we take these realizations and turn them into meaningful change? Look at them like it's happening for us instead of happening to.
Again, going back to our window, how am I seeing this? Recognizing and being in awareness. How, did I feel like victimized because I was laid off? Did I feel angry because I didn't get a promotion? Did I feel guilty because I couldn't leave work to go to my child's soccer game? Like just being in awareness when we're in one of these pivotal moments, and they don't have to be a huge moment in your life. They can just be something small that really is impactful. I love to use our values in this way. So one of the very first exercises that I take families and groups through is to establish what our personal values are and what our family values are. And it kind of sounds, again, simple, yet using those personal and family values drives good decisions. It drives our kiddos to go off to college and know themselves at least a little better. I mean, their brains are not ready for all the executive functioning yet by then. And if they are established in, well, I did my values and I kind of know who I am and I know what I care about in the world, right? It makes a really big difference for how they make decisions. It makes a difference for how we make decisions in our world, when I'll use an example again of like the kiddo going off to college. So I would really like my kiddo to go to a specific college. I can't really tell you why. I've never been to the college. I had a dream about it though. And I have these kind of ideas and dreams all the time. It's my creative brain. And I told him, I said, I had this amazing dream about you going to this school. And he's like, well, that's not even on my top 3 or top 5. And I'm like, that's okay. And that's for me to be aware that that's my stuff. Like, that's not his school. He doesn't have to want to go to it. And, I'm aware it's my stuff, like my vision for him.
Mm-hmm.
And he's going to have his own vision for himself at this point in his life. And I can share what visions I have for him. And he's launching. He's got his own values and his own ideas and his own young man things to do and job and responsibilities. It's funny when someone will say to me, well, why isn't he go do this or do that? I'm like, when I was 17, I had kind of my own life too, away from my family. I'm trying to lower my expectations. And that's
allow him to create his own path, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
I think my parents did a very good job. I always say, like, I don't know how you did, where I always knew they were there, but they allowed me to make my own mistakes and to learn from them. But I always had this innate pressure to not disappoint. So I feel like that's part of my window. But those things, I think, helped me make the right decisions. So perhaps that was a value of mine. But just going back to that, because I love that concept of creating that. Okay, so I have a few questions coming off of that. How do you do that? Do you sit down first as the mom, the dad, the moms, the dads, and you create what your individual values are as the heads of the household? And then do you sit with your children? And does it matter what age? Like, what if I have kids who are in high school and college? Is it too late to sit and establish these things? Or is it too young for me to do something like that with my 6 and my 10-year-old? I just give you lots of questions. But...
Yeah, I know. Where do I begin? So I don't feel it's ever too late to start this work. I wished I had started it sooner. And I started it when my kiddo was 6.
Yeah, okay.
I think because it's really for us as the adults, whether you're the parent or the child in the relationship, it's never too late to start working on our relationships and have better connection, deeper connection with the people that we really care about in the world. As far as when to start with your kiddos on the values piece of it, really you can start really young and even helping them, here are our family values. Let's talk about them together. Definitely a key point to make there.
Yeah, so you're not creating them yourself and then telling them what they are. They're part of...
Absolutely.
They're part of the decision making to determine what they think the values. Yeah, you're creating it as a whole family.
As a family, yep. I mean, individual values are individual for our parents and for our children. Any kind of family values setting is really important to include everyone in the family for that family values session. Because are you more likely to follow something that's handed to you or to believe in something?
Something you're part of, right?
Right. You want to be a part of that. And you want to be like, well, my value is kindness. Like, that's the one I nominated for our family values. Everyone agreed. And it is my favorite family value, right? And
how is there a right number to choose?
I usually say 3 to 5 and be flexible that maybe a year down the road, maybe 6 months down the road, maybe a couple years down the road, maybe you want to update your family values. Maybe things adjust a little bit in your world. Maybe work is a really important value, like your work ethic is a really important value in your house. And maybe down the road, there comes a time where that adjusts or that changes a little bit. Maybe it's still important and it's not in your top 3 to 5.
How do you navigate the situation when maybe a child lives in 2 different houses?
Right. So I actually have that situation and have for 8 years. So almost 9 years. I do coach families who are co-parenting and lots of parents who are co-parenting in my groups. And it's not something that you have control over. So we'll go back to power styles, right? You can be power over and think that you're going to control the values of the other household, which you're not. And I always go back to, this is the only thing that Heather has control over, my mind and my heart, right? Same with co-parenting. We have no control over what's going on in the other household, whether, the children are being given the same tools or loved the same way or fed the same way or put to bed at the same time. None of that is within our control as a co-parent. Ideally, the parents will have a collaboration in that. And I see that doesn't happen very often, right? I met a mom a couple of weeks ago and she said, my ex-husband and I were very collaborative in our parenting. And it's been amazing. And our kids really thrived in that environment. And I'm thinking, wow, that's so rare. I hear that most of the time there's conflict or very different parenting in each household because each person has had very different
their own
parenting.
window.
Yep.
Yeah. So you just establish your values, your family values within your own household because that's what you can control. Like, how do you then sort of enforce those? So using it as a teachable moment, they ask to do something, and do we say, does this align with our family values or keeping our family values in mind? What kind of decision would you make? How can you use that as a parent to?
There's so many directions I can go with this. So I'll give you a tool first or a technique that I use to remember family values. I love to post things on mirrors in my home.
We do that too.
So, yeah. Even with the wipe off marker too, I would write messages to my son, mantras like, you are powerful, you are smart, you are like whatever. We used to talk about those and say those at bedtime too. Like we would go through kind of a little mantra. And even after he'd go to sleep, I'd go in there and like rub his back and I would just say the mantras. Even if I didn't say them out loud, I would push that energy.
Yeah.
For him, right? So I do a lot of mirrors, a lot of writing on mirrors, posting notes and memes, and they don't all have to be, super deep, but the values I do like to post. And I like to post fun things too, like Star Wars memes, and I have a little sign right outside his bathroom. It says, never grow up. We had an ongoing joke, really. I think it's still ongoing, even though he's 6'4" now. I'm like, I'm just going to feed you candy and then you won't grow up.
Oh, I love that.
So, and then he didn't want to eat candy.
Win-win.
Oh, yes. No, he still wanted to eat candy.
Yeah, we have one mantra, and I actually grabbed this from one of my old sales managers that I worked with in finance. And he always signed off his calls to his team. And he said, don't have a good day, have a great day. And so I say that every day with my girls when I drop them off. So I'll just say, don't have a good day. And then they'll yell back, have a great day.
Oh,
yeah. So it's like little fun things like that. So
yes. Yeah. Having some of those, I would always say, how much do I love you? And he'd go, so, and like, I just let it linger on and on.
Yeah.
Like, I love
Does
those
he
little
still
things.
do that?
He hasn't in a while. Maybe I'll check it out. I'll test him.
just call him when he wakes up. How much do you love your mom?
No, how much do I love him?
Oh, how much do you love him?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. I'll have to ask. I'm going to see if he's still going to do that. But yeah, those are like just little ways to connect more deeply with our kiddos.
Instead of it being always so formal and
And they're just a reminder for them that there is that deep connection with you and that safety. In your connection, because safety comes back over and over in this work with parents. And again, that's a power with style relationship. So one of the values in our household is to be honest with each other. And I looked it up last night because I was trying to remember what the statistic was. And the average adult lies at least 1 to 2 times a day, which is kind of interesting. And lying is really about safety. Like we lie when we don't feel safe in being truthful about something.
Yes, I remember you saying this and this resonated with me and I'll share why. Keep going, yes.
And so through the years, even when my kiddo was littler and definitely now that he is a teenager, I will remind him, hey, remember our value. Like, tell me what's really going on. And sometimes it's not what I want to hear. as a mom. Ooh, man, I didn't realize you were doing that. Or, ooh, I didn't like how you talked to your friends through the wall or through the door.
Yeah.
Loudly and meanly. And then that's another of our values is kindness. I'm like, ooh, that didn't sound very kind. Like, I'm wondering about that. Like, what do you think? Do you think that was very kind? And instead of throwing it in his face and saying, oh, our value is kindness. I don't like this. What's going on here? I'm like, more from a place of curiosity. Like, one of our values in our family is kindness. It doesn't sound very kind. One of our values in our family is to be honest. I kind of feel like you're not being fully honest with me right now. Or, ooh, that value of honesty is heavy right now. Mom needs to take a moment. Like, and just being my perfectly imperfect self.
Yeah. Because you
in
don't
that
have to be
space.
perfect, right?
None of us are.
Yeah.
I always say we're all perfectly imperfect.
Yeah. I love that.
So tell me the story.
Yeah, no. And because I remember this reminds me, I can actually even think about a friend growing up who used to lie quite a lot. And I always just thought, that's so horrible. But then when you said lying is just them not feeling safe, it made so much sense because she had a lot going on in her family life. And I've been working on the concept of telling the truth with my 6-year-old because she's always very nervous to tell me the truth because she doesn't want to get in trouble. So it's like she does something at school. She passed a note, or 6-year-old, like what did she say? Like what could the note have said? Or she was distracting her friend or giggling in class or something, and she got a lap during recess, but she doesn't want to tell me because she's like so embarrassed. And last night she said to me, I just said to her, I was like so proud of how she's been doing with her reading. And she said, but aren't you so proud that when I get in trouble, I come and I tell you and I don't hide it?
I love that she said that.
Because I've just been trying to work with her. Like, I don't want you to not tell me the truth. Sometimes you might get in trouble, but mommy would be more upset if you didn't tell the truth and she found out. Because she was like, sometimes she would do something around the house and then she'd hide it. Like, mixing paint with soap. And then one day I found it under the sink and I'm like, you have to stop doing this. Like, but I made a big mess and I didn't want to tell you because then I'd get in trouble. And so now I also have to check myself. I have spoken to her about, if you're honest with me, maybe in the past I would have gotten really frustrated. Now I can't get frustrated. I have to honor that she was honest and then we clean it up together.
Sure. Well, and you choose not to feel frustrated.
And that was more of an
honesty is more of an important value.
And that was an
than
awareness thing
cleanliness.
for me. Like, oh, this is going to trigger me. Be aware that you have to take a breath. This is something you two both talked about. I guess not realizing it's a value that's important. It is very important for me. And I was through this, like in my professional career. If you made a mistake, you own it. I never liked when people didn't do that because I just think it's an indication of someone's character. If you make a mistake, own it and move forward. Learn from it and move forward. But if you try to create all these lies around something, it would drive me nuts. So I'm trying to instill that in my young children. But that was a long story, but just an example, I think, of what you're talking about.
It is. And as parents, we get to choose too. So for instance, my son and some of his friends in middle school went and jumped over the fence at the pool in our neighborhood and moved chairs around. I mean, they didn't do anything destructive or spray paint or any crazy stuff, but one of the neighbors was very upset and posting on the Facebook page, there were some boys in the pool area after hours and And I thought, oh, I think my kid and his friends were out walking around. And I asked him, I said, were you and your friends walking around and going in the pool? And he was like, yeah. I said, okay. And I went to the person who was upset about it. And I said, hey, that was my son. And they will go up as soon as they get out of bed and they will go rearrange the chairs and clean up. And as a parent, I owned that for him in a way that just led him to understand, like, we take care of our responsibilities. And when we do something, we own it and we clean it up or whatever.
For him. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, there's so many opportunities as a parent to defend our kid, which I absolutely am my kid's biggest advocate and always will be, and to also recognize and help model when we make a mistake, how do we handle it? So yeah,
because they're always listening and they are always watching. I know that now too, especially Because my 6-year-old regurgitates literally a conversation my husband and I thought we were having that was private in the kitchen. She'll be like, hey, grandma, blah, 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 blah. So I have a question, because you also talked about this during the session, that your concept of an iceberg model. And I loved the visual that you use, because a lot of emotions can occur and oftentimes they can be signs of something else. So can you explain that concept and then how we can navigate those as parents? I don't think this is just applied to children. I think this can be applied to, we talked about the sandwich generation and icebergs with your parents, situations even with your parents. So
Yes. Ooh, yeah. And we could talk for
that
hours.
could be a whole nother episode for
just
sure.
on the iceberg itself, because it's such a powerful thing. I have it on my window at all times. And it's empathy and compassion at the core of it. So the thing about an iceberg is, right, you only see the little tip of it when it's floating in the water, and the big part is under the water. You don't see it, right?
Probably like the actual root cause of the outburst.
Yeah. So that little tip, that's our behavior, right? So that's what we see. We see our kid hiding the stuff under the sink and feeling like they were going to get in trouble for it, right? That's a behavior. Or moving chairs around at the pool and leaving it a mess. And then that's the behavior I see. So what was under that behavior, right? I'll use the teenagers as the behavior. So feelings, needs, and beliefs are the three main things that we're going to find underneath the behavior. And under that,
feelings, needs, and beliefs. Okay.
Feelings, needs, and beliefs. There's the main things. There are lots of others and I'll be happy to share the diagram too for your listeners. And I'll give a link to it so we can put it in here. So beneath the tip of the iceberg is the big part of the iceberg, and feelings, needs, and beliefs are at the core of what's going on under there. So say, for example, this one gets people a lot of times when I'm sharing this. Say the behavior is your neighbor leaving their dog poop in your yard, right? So that's one like most adults can relate to and be frustrated about. So when this has happened, I use that iceberg model, the iceberg example. We'll put it up so you can see like a visual of it. It's just a fun visual that pops into my mind every time I am thinking about something that doesn't seem right to me, or a behavior that I'm like, oh, like what's going on there? And I approach it with curiosity instead of frustration or annoyance. When that neighbor leaves poop in my yard, what was going on? Well, maybe they forgot the poop bags. Maybe they got a phone call while their dog was going to the bathroom and they had to run and do something. The idea isn't to make a bunch of excuses for someone having a bad behavior or a behavior you don't like. It doesn't have to be a bad behavior. It could just be something you don't like. Through your window, what you see and what you don't like. So I use this analogy in like light speed time all day long. It is so helpful for me to adjust myself and be in awareness of myself when I use this iceberg analogy. And then I don't let it bother me. So the dog poop in my yard, I'll just go pick it up.
So how do you apply that then, this concept, to the situation with your son with the moving the chairs? So how did you approach that using this tool? Just to give us another example.
Well, if I were to use it, I used it more on the person who was upset about what they had done than I did for my kiddo. So the example there would be, so the behavior was they moved a bunch of chairs at the pool, right? What am I going to go back and what feelings, needs, and beliefs were under that? They were having fun. They believed that it wasn't a big deal to move the chairs around or to climb over the fence at the pool when it was closed. I don't think they really had any needs other than just having fun and enjoying themselves. And
then how did you apply that to the actual person?
And that was interesting. I mean, it often is because, again, I have a window and I see that person getting upset about other things. Mm-hmm. So I already have a preconceived notion or a bias on, they're upset about something else. And this time my kid did it, right? And again, I love the analogy from Ted Lasso, like be like a goldfish, right? Like let stuff roll off that doesn't matter. So the goldfish has a really short memory, right? Or a small brain. Like let stuff roll off that doesn't matter. Does it matter that this person is upset? Really so much. So his behavior is he's angry. Feelings, needs, and beliefs under that. He might feel like young whippersnappers these days are out of control, and maybe his need is that the pool look orderly and our neighborhood look nice, right? His belief is maybe that's the one about the young whippersnappers all are disrespectful or whatever.
Yeah.
So just taking into account all of the taking it compassionately and curiously and going, oh, okay. Well, how do I respond? I'm in awareness of me, and I just processed all of these things for me. I didn't process them for the angry person. I didn't process them for my child. I processed them for me, and then I took action on where I landed with that, based in my values, based in analyzing something from a very simple perspective of an iceberg.
Because you've mentioned this a couple times, you emphasize the kindness and language as powerful tools. So why do you think these matter so much?
So kindness has been on our values list, like number one for many, many, many years. Kindness to ourselves first is what I would always recommend. And the kinder you are to yourself, I could be really hard on myself in the situation where the boys made a mess at the pool. Man, I should have watched them. I should have been, told them they had to come in the house at 8:00 or, the things that can go through our mind, being unkind to ourselves as a parent or being unkind to ourselves as a child. Like, oh, I'm losing my mind. My mom said the same thing over and over to me on this day. And, I just, I feel like a bad person. Like kindness says, hey, Heather, it's okay, right?
No.
It's okay to feel that way. It's okay. Well, what are the feelings, needs, and beliefs under that, the behavior that I'm exhibiting, right? We can use it on ourselves too. So one of my coaches, who is amazing and still one of my dearest friends and an amazing behavioral and executive coach, she talks about illegal words. And when she first put this idea out into the world, into my head, I thought, words don't really make that big of a difference, right? What's the old saying when we were kids? The words bounce off of me and stick to you. Or words make a really big difference in our parenting and in our relationships. And one of the first words that she recommended to eliminate is the word but or however. And I thought, oh, I don't really think that makes a big difference. Oh my goodness, does it? So if I say, yeah, I'd love to come on your show and talk with you, Diana, but la 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 la, whatever, right? You don't hear anything that came before that,
That's
comma,
right.
but, comma. You, same with however, however's the same.
Yeah. You're just going to focus on, and it just feels negative.
So if I say, oh, I would love to come on your show, Diana, and I think I can do it next Thursday. And I don't know if I'm going to be able to do it till the new year. I don't know, whatever the thing is, using and
Instead of but.
Or however is a game changer in our language. Just one example, and one of my favorite ones when I started with, I just used that word.
Is there a set of illegal words you'd recommend, or is it really up to you as an individual?
It's really up to you as an individual. I do have a big set of them, and it's one of the sessions that I offer. I'll share a couple more, and
Okay.
maybe that will be a fun way to give people a few more tools. Like I said, it's a start. Don't give yourself too many. Give yourself just the but and one to start with. Or another one that's really powerful is in changing need to, have to, or should. And I say, don't should all over each other, right? Don't should all over yourself. Changing that to I choose to, I want to, I will.
I'm writing all these down.
Yeah, much more powerful ways to express ourselves and to say what we really mean.
If someone is listening and feeling really inspired by our conversation, but they're also very overwhelmed, what's one simple thing that they could do today?
We're going to say, and they're also very overwhelmed first.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes. Oh, sorry. Did I say but? See, that's just natural.
It is.
And you asked to change that. So I will rephrase. If someone is listening and feeling inspired and overwhelmed, what's one simple thing they can do today?
Ooh, I love it. Wow. Change the word. Be kind to yourself.
Yeah, I think that for me, that's a big one. I am really hard on myself.
Yeah.
And I don't know where that comes from. Well, I do, because I've been working on that. But yeah, I think that's a great reminder to everyone is just be kind to yourself. Because if you're not kind to yourself, then you're pulling from an empty tank too.
Oh.
So how can you teach kindness if you're not doing it yourself?
So true. We want our children to be kind. And also, I love the Brene Brown. I'm probably going to get the quote wrong, but she's like, soft front, strong back. Like being kind doesn't mean that we are a pushover. It doesn't mean that we are unkind to ourselves when we're kind to somebody else. Like that is not what we want to model for our kids. Being kind is just being kind and showing up in the world in a kind way. So such a...
That also really aligns with the energetic work that I've been learning about, because the front end of, say, your heart energy center is your emotions, and your back is your will, which is your ability to sort of hold your own. So that matches really, really beautifully. So do you have any parting words for our guests? Any thoughts, final thoughts for parents or caregivers who are trying to do better?
Well, this work is powerful in our lives as parents and as children. I am working with Archwell Health and launching a series coming up. It'll be in Q1, and we're going to talk about the sandwich generation and what that feels like, which is, I had an epiphany and a couple weeks ago thinking about our generations. So we've got maybe our grandparents' generation, if we're a Gen Xer, right? They were the golden generation. They had children young. Our parents took care of them, who are typically the boomers at this age, right? And the boomers tended to have children younger also. And by the time their children were adults, they were taking care of their parents or in the helping phase.
Yeah,
of
and their
that.
kids weren't in the house.
Their kids were already adults. Yeah. So you get the Gen Xers who had children later, oftentimes, and the millennials who had children later, oftentimes, who still have younger children in the house. And you've got these boomer parents who are aging now in their 70s, 80s, and we're sandwiched. Like we are still caring for our young children and we're caring for our parents and sometimes additional family members in that age group, right? Thinking about that in that way, this sandwich generation, that's the sandwich generation where you're caring for a young child and an elderly adult. I'm seeing it so much right now in every ethnicity, every community, every area. So if you're not aware of it or what's going on with it, it's a good time to learn about it. So I'll be happy to post a link and share when those will be, and they're free.
That aligns with my next question, which is how can people get in touch with you and learn more about the CEO of Me and other programs that you have available, especially the sandwich generation one that'll be coming out next year?
I want to also share there's a family digital health one that I'm doing with a therapist in Charlotte too. So that will be also a free event to the public.
Are these all in person or do you ever do virtual?
These will be in person. We may record.
Yeah, because I think digital health, right? And I think for the listeners, that is really just devices and how to work with your children around, right, the usage of, the responsibility of, and which is, I know, a very, very hot topic.
Yes. And just from a parenting perspective is where we're taking that as a very big topic. And lots of experts out in the world for that too, and all different levels of rigor and what that looks like, right? So my Momentor is my handle on Instagram and Pinterest. So any social media. I have some fun tools out on Pinterest too, like a good bedtime tool that I share with parents, some questions to ask at bedtime, one for every night of the week. And then mymomentor.com is my website, and I'll have information there guiding people to when those events will take place. And I've got a whole page of amazing resources that
you do. Yeah.
I love and have accumulated and have had shared with me through the years. Some videos that I've done. I've done a lot of interviews in the past year with people who I really admire and learning from still and always learning. So,
are you on YouTube?
I am. Yes. That's my Momentor as well.
Okay, perfect. So listeners, I'll put all that information in resources, regardless of what platform you're on, so that you can easily access Heather and all of the wonderful things that she has to help us all out, because we can always use help, right?
We deserve it.
Yes. Yes. So Heather, thank you so much for this conversation. I love how CEO of Me reminds us that leadership doesn't start with controlling the outcomes. It starts with the awareness, the kindness, and the responsibility within ourselves. So to everyone listening, know that our awareness as parents and as humans is powerful. We can choose to embrace teachable moments of our life as our own CEO and to learn and grow in perfect imperfection. Thank you for joining me on Women's Wellness Authority. If this episode resonated with you, please share it with another friend, a parent who could really use all of these tools to help them out. Be sure to subscribe on your favorite podcast platform or on YouTube. And if you're loving the show, a 5-star review helps more women find this space. So until next time, stay curious, stay empowered, and most of all, stay well. Thanks, everyone. Thank you for tuning in to this episode of Women's Wellness Authority. If today's conversation inspired you, shifted your perspective, or sparked something within you, I'd be so grateful if you'd subscribe, leave a review, or share this episode with someone who might need it the most. Have a story of your own or something you'd like to share? I'd love to hear from you. You can connect with me on YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook at Women's Wellness Authority. Please note the content shared on this podcast is for informational purposes only and is not a substitute for medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always consult with a qualified healthcare provider regarding your health and wellness decisions. Until next time, stay curious, stay empowered, and most of all, stay well. Thanks, everyone.